Well, hey there, campers. Welcome to Tinfoil and Tan Lines. This is a limited summer series from Generation X Paranormal. I, of course, am Logan Mathias, your solo host, and tonight's camp counselor of the uncanny. Now, this series is all about UFOs and UAPs that made headlines during the summer months. And tonight, we're going deep into one of the most iconic UFO stories in history, the Phoenix Lights. We're not just retelling the main story. No. We've already covered that in Season 2, Episode 16 of Generation X Paranormal. Tonight, I want to talk about what happened after the lights disappeared. Because the summer of 1997 in Arizona, it stayed strange. And as a Tucson native who grew up under those star-filled desert skies, I can tell you this story hits different.
It's been 4 months since the well-publicized UFO sighting over Phoenix. Since then, more sightings, some in the daytime, and people are still looking for answers.
The entire world is watching Arizona right now since it's the UFO hotspot. They're watching what happens next, and so are we.
Some believe the lights were flares, some believe they were a secret military aircraft, and others believe they were spaceships. But now a new theory emerges concerning the origins of the mysterious lights over Phoenix. It's a theory that supposedly our own government has knowledge of, and it's a theory of mysterious balls of light visiting Earth from distant galaxies.
All right, let's get started. So picture it. You're out late on a warm March night. Now, I know I said summer months, but hey, taking a little liberty. The desert breeze is soft. The coyotes are howling in the distance, and then the sky goes silent, which in Arizona, that's not always a good thing. The Phoenix Light incident happened March 19th, 1997. Thousands of people from all walks of life saw a massive V-shaped craft drifting silently overhead. It wasn't just a quick flash, mind you. This thing took its time. All the folks in Phoenix, Glendale, and Tucson were left staring skyward, jaws on the ground. Now, good old Governor Cy Fymington later joked about it in a press conference, but years later he admitted he had seen it too.
If you had been here 10 years ago and standing out here and looking up there at the lights and the view, you would have been astounded. You would have been amazed.
Governor Symington is referring to what is now known as the Phoenix Lights.
And I suspect that unless the Defense Department proves us otherwise, that it was probably some form of an alien spacecraft.
And what's worse, the military called it a flare drop. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I was in the military. I worked with plenty of flares. I call BS on that. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, but around the fire tonight, let's be honest. Flares don't fly in formation, they don't move with purpose, and they sure as hell don't shut up a whole state at once. Now here's where it gets good. Everyone remembers March. When June rolled in, the heat wave wasn't the only thing rising. Sightings continued, maybe even escalated. People in Casa Grande, Chandler, and my hometown of Phoenix start reporting lights again. Not one-off glimpses, I mean lingering, low-hovering, silent shapes. Some look like triangles. Others were that same ominous V-shape. Campers in the desert told stories of glowing crafts slipping in and out of the mountains. In and out of the mountains. I just wanted to make sure to repeat that. One woman said she could feel her hair stand up as a silent orb passed overhead nearing Reddington Pass. Another family near Saguaro National Park said their car radio fuzzed out as 3 lights passed slowly above. Now you tell me, campers, does that sound like flares?
It's been 4 months since the well-publicized UFO sighting over Phoenix. Since then, more sightings, some in the daytime, and people are still looking for answers.
The entire world is watching Arizona right now since it's the UFO hotspot. They're watching what happens next, and so are we.
Some believe the lights were flares. Some believe they were a secret military aircraft.
Tucson often gets left out of the Phoenix Light saga. But trust me, we had a front row seat down south. That summer, talk of the strange was everywhere. We huddled around backyard fire pits, passed around flashlights and soda cans, and shared the newest weird sighting. People were setting up skywatch parties in Sabino Canyon, on rooftops near Tanque Verde, and even just on fold-out lawn chairs in apartment parking lots. I remember this very, very vividly. There was an account of somebody's uncle climbing up on the carport roof, camcorder in hand, waiting. And he wasn't alone. All across the city we were watching and wondering. And that something, it was watching back.
It took about 12 to 15 minutes to come in our direction, and we could see then that it was a V-shaped formation, and also that the ends of this V-shaped formation were very square. And then we saw it as it went completely overhead. It was extremely close to us, and it, as it went right over us, the right wing went directly over us and our house, and my husband and I were standing right there together, and the kids were out there.
Tim, do you have a sense of how high it was?
Yeah, I would say that it was in the neighborhood of 150 or so feet over the house.
That close, and moving how fast?
35 miles an hour.
And making any noise?
Not a single sound. That's what, you know, when it first started coming over, and it was so big, it was like 600 or 800 feet long, this one arm.
Well, let's talk about the official explanations, right? Luke Air Force Base kept the story straight. Flares. All of it. Even the sightings in June and July. But that didn't satisfy the campfire crowd. No, it did not. These were coordinated, repeating, complex sightings. Flares don't hover, they don't buzz like static, and they don't move in unison for miles. We knew it. The people knew it, and even some of the press knew it. That summer, Tucson residents called in local news so often they had to set up an automatic tip line. People were hungry for answers, and the silence from above was deafening.
Those 5 lights flying in formation have always been controversial. The military always said they were part of a routine flare exercise, but a lot of people didn't buy that explanation. It was the largest mass UFO sighting of all time.
Now let me paint you a picture. Imagine groups of strangers, retirees, students, truckers, all gathered together sitting in truck beds and lawn chairs with binoculars, coolers, and snacks. That was pretty cool, I'm not going to lie. It pretty much centered everybody from all walks of life, and it was real. And what happened every single weekend that summer in Phoenix, in Tucson, and Flagstaff, groups like MUFON couldn't keep up. Local diners had flyer boards with meeting times, libraries ran UFO documentary nights, and for one beautiful weird summer, the people of Arizona said, "We're watching." Well, let's talk about the power of summer. The heat messes with your mind. I can tell you that right now. The stillness makes every sound feel lighter. The stars seem closer. And in Arizona, the sky dome of endless ink. And it's interesting. When I say that, a lot of people don't realize what I'm talking about. And those of you who have ever been out in the desert in the dead of night with no moonlight to kind of stop some of that refraction, it literally feels like you are sitting in a dome. You can see from horizon to horizon in every direction. And it kind of looks like this crazy marble that you're in. It's just amazing. More people are outside. The air is dry and cleaner during the summer. The desert offers a perfect viewing of everything. And there, in that big black bowl of stars, we kept seeing something. It wasn't just wishful thinking. The reports matched. The shapes, the movement, the silence. It wasn't imagination. It was repetition.
What I'm looking at here is a light on South Mountain. You can see this light flickering over our mountain over here. Now we're looking at a light that's now appeared again. It's come out in a different place. Definitely far away. South Mountain. There's 2 of them. Here, we finally hit pay dirt. Now we've got 2 of them in the sky on South Mountain. South Mountain.
So around the campfire, let's talk about some possibilities. Maybe it was ours. I mean, it's tech decades ahead of what we know. I mean, test lights under the cover of night? Maybe. And maybe it's not ours. The V-shape, the silence, the way it moved around like we were watching. What if March was just the opener? What if the summer was an encore? A way to say, hey, we're here. Now, most skeptics will say, it's hallucinations, and I would imagine for some it makes sense, but hallucinations don't happen over 3 counties at once. So I grew up watching a lot of A-10s, and if you don't know what that is, hang around Tucson for a while because you'll be very familiar with them. And they all fly over the Sonoran Desert. I know my jets. I was in the military. I was in an F-14 squadron, and I was an aviation ordnanceman. So basically it just means I put bombs on planes, right? But here's the thing. I know what's not in the manual, okay? That's not how flares work. That's not how aircraft work. There is, for every single thing we did in the military, I guarantee you there was a record behind it. Does that mean it's going to be shared with the public? No, of course not. But I call foul when it comes to the Phoenix Lights, okay? Now, the summer of 1997 gave me something I can't shake. A sense that the world was bigger, stranger. That we don't always get to be in control of the narrative. And when something that massive, that quiet, that deliberate moves overhead, you remember that. So here we are, campers, nearly 30 years later. And the skies over Arizona, and they're still one of the most mysterious in the world. Phoenix Lights didn't end on March 13th. They echoed. They evolved. And that summer, desert sky didn't just shimmer. It spoke. Well, at any rate, guys, thank you for joining me around the fire tonight. This has been Tinfoil and Tan Lines, a Generation X Paranormal series. I'm Logan Mathias. Now pack up your marshmallows, stoke the coals, and keep one eye on the stars because something just might be looking back.
There's a story that, another story involving you and your son that I want to ask you about because I don't know the details on this story, but you guys saw a UFO. True?
Oh, you're talking about, yeah. Yeah, it is
in
true.
A plane, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Goldie had an experience. She wrote about it in her book. But anyway, so she's not just a firm believer. She had an experience. So one time, Oliver, I was flying. It was in a time where I was kind of like I just a couple years earlier learned to fly. So I was still at a period in my life where any excuse to fly would do. He wanted to go to Phoenix to see a friend, and I said, sure, I'll fly you there.
Oh, really? Okay.
So we flew to.
My dad wouldn't drive me to the mall, by the way. Maybe bowling. That was it.
So we're going into Phoenix, and I think it was Sky Harbor, and there's these bank of lights, 6 lights, in the shape of a triangle, going back, right over the airport. And I'm looking at them as I'm coming in. I'm, on the horn talking to them, and I'm coming in, and I'm not saying anything about it because I'm kind of confused by it, but I can't tell if this is going to be an issue or not with landing. And Oliver said, hey, Pa, what are those lights? And I said, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what they are. And so anyway, I called up the tower and I said, what are you guys painting tonight over the airport? And they said, we're not showing anything. What are you seeing? I said, well, there's 6 lights in a row. And they said, do you want to report this? And I said, look, I can't identify it. It's flying and it's 6 objects. So that's what it is, right? So we landed. I dropped him off, flew home. Years later, I come home and Goldie's watching this show on UFOs. And the most reported one of all time was this one in Phoenix. And I start to see this show and I said, wait a minute. That's the night Ollie and I were landing in Phoenix. I remember that. And I said, wait a minute, I've got it in my logbook. So I went to my logbook and I didn't mention anything about the reporting the UFO, but my flight was logged. So I said, yeah, and on the show they talked about 20,000 people reporting it and only one general aviation pilot. And I said, that's me. Right? So the weirdest part of that to me, though, was I'd never thought about it from the time I landed until I saw that TV show. And when I saw Oliver the next day, he hadn't either.